Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're heading over to Sardinia. You know, that Italian island is famous as one of these blue zones.
Right, places where people live incredibly long lives.
Exactly. And what's really caught our eye about Sardinia is the amazing longevity of the men there, specifically.
It's quite a unique demographic feature within the blue zones, definitely.
So we've dug into the research, looking at their food, their lifestyle, the whole environment, really.
Yeah, the sources cover quite a bit of ground.
And our mission, basically, is to pull out the key stuff for you. Get a clear picture of what's driving this long life thing.
We know you want the insights, but, time is tight, so we'll try and cut to the chase.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first thing that jumps out from all the reading is there isn't just one magic bullet here.
Ah, right. No single secret.
No, it's more like a mix of different things all working together. A synergy, almost.
Okay, so a multifaceted picture. Let's unpack that. One thing that seems really significant is the physical activity level.
Oh, definitely. It's baked into their traditional way of life. Think about shepherding, for instance.
Right, constantly moving across that pretty demanding landscape. Mountains, steep hills.
Exactly. That's not just a walk in the park. It's serious physical work, day in, day out. Steep gradients, rugged paths.
And that means they're burning a lot more energy.
For sure. And it builds incredible cardiovascular health that lasts, well into old age. This isn't weekend warrior stuff. It's lifelong conditioning.
And there's data on this, right? I saw something about wearables.
Yeah, pretty simple accelerometers, actually. They tracked activity levels.
And the results were pretty striking.
Very. They found over 40% of Sardinians in their 90s were still hitting moderate physical activity levels.
Moderate being, what, above 3 METs, I think?
That's the one, metabolic equivalence. So yeah, quite active even at that age.
Wow. And how does that stack up against other blue zones?
That's an interesting comparison. The research actually contrasts it with Icaria, another longevity hotspot. Icaria apparently has much lower numbers of nonagenarians reaching those same activity levels.
So it suggests maybe the kind of activity in Sardinia, that constant load-bearing movement, might be particularly important.
That seems to be the implication. It's not just movement, but perhaps the specific, sustained, often quite strenuous activity tied to their traditional work and terrain.
Right, woven into the fabric of their daily lives, not an add-on. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Food. Always fascinating.
Always. And in Sardinia, goat's cheese comes up again and again.
A real staple.
Absolutely. But it's not just that they eat it, it's what's in it. Specifically, something called conjugated linoleic acid.
CLA. Okay, I've heard of that. What's the significance for longevity?
Well, first off, animal studies suggest CLA has some interesting properties, anti-inflammatory, maybe even anti-cancer effects.
Okay, that's relevant.
But the really intriguing part, for longevity research anyway, is its potential link to a specific protein.
Which protein is that?
It's called SIRTUIN-1, SRT1 for short.
SORT1 rings a bell. Isn't that linked to, like, cellular repair and aging processes?
Exactly. Think of it as a key regulator, involved in keeping cells healthy and resilient. It's like part of the cell's maintenance crew.
And other things trigger SORT1 too, right? Like
Right.
calorie restriction.
Precisely. Calorie restriction is a known activator. And also resveratrol, that compound you find in red wine.
So the idea is, by eating this goat's cheese regularly, they might be sort of naturally activating the same pathways that things like fasting or calorie restriction do.
That's the hypothesis, yeah. It suggests that some elements of their traditional diet could be mimicking the biochemical effects of those more, let's say, intentional longevity strategies.
No.
It's not a perfect match, obviously, but the potential overlap is fascinating. It kind of hints that these ancestral diets had benefits we're only just starting to understand scientifically.
Like they stumbled onto longevity hacks without even trying. Okay, so we have the intense physical activity, this interesting CLA angle with the cheese. What else? Tradition and environment seem big too.
Hugely important. And this ties into how parts of Sardinia developed, economically speaking.
How so?
Well, the pace of change was slower in some areas, so older cultural patterns just stuck around longer.
Patterns like?
Things like eating together, strong reliance on manual work, walking everywhere instead of jumping in a car, communal living, basically.
Right, things that sound remarkably like modern healthy living advice.
Exactly. Stuff we often struggle to build back into our modern lives. For many Sardinians, it was just life.
It was the default setting.
Pretty much. And these preserved lifestyles line up really well with what longevity science is telling us now.
And the actual physical environment plays a part too, doesn't it? The mountains we mentioned.
Oh, absolutely. There's some cool geospatial analysis mentioned in the sources.
Geospatial, so like mapping stuff.
Yeah. Researchers basically mapped out different factors across Sardinia's, I think, 377 municipalities. Things like typical walking distances to work, how physically demanding local jobs were, the type of terrain.
And they correlated that with how long people lived in those areas.
Exactly. They found clear associations between those local environmental and lifestyle variables and the overall population longevity in those specific places.
So the land itself is almost shaping their lifespan.
In a way, yes, it really reinforces this idea of Sardinia as a kind of unique living laboratory for studying healthy aging.
A living lab. I like that.
It fits, doesn't it? But this also brings up a crucial question.
Which is?
How long can this last? You know, with globalization, technology changing everything.
Yeah.
Are these blue zone characteristics sustainable?
That's a really good point. And a bit worrying, maybe. You think about younger generations. More screen time, maybe less traditional work.
Right, more sedentary lifestyles, different food choices potentially creeping in. Will those sort of ancient rhythms that supported longevity start to fade?
Will people start driving more, eating more processed foods? That incidental activity might just disappear.
It's a real risk. The same forces that have changed life everywhere else are definitely present in Sardinia now. It's an open question whether the protective factors will hold strong for future generations.
It really highlights that the lessons here aren't just eat this or do that exercise.
Not at all. I think what's really powerful from the Sardinian example is looking beyond just the physical stuff.
You mean like the community aspect?
Yes. The strong social bonds, having a sense of purpose tied to that traditional life, a certain simplicity maybe. These are things often missing in our faster, more isolated modern lives.
That social fabric seems just as vital as the diet or the walking. There was that anecdote, too, wasn't there? About the researcher's mother.
Oh, yeah, that was a lovely touch. Really brings it home. His mother, born 1925, still going strong, year 98.
Described as a living embodiment of successful aging.
Exactly. It puts a human face on all the data and the theories. Makes it feel very real, very possible.
And it kind of reinforces this idea, doesn't it? That maybe the big secrets aren't some, exotic pill or weird biohack.
Right. Maybe it's more about rediscovering some fundamental truths.
Old truths, as one source put it.
Yeah, truths embedded in tradition, community, and just living in a way that respects our basic biological needs. Without all the modern noise, perhaps.
It suggests we might have overcomplicated things a bit in our search for long life.
It certainly makes you think. Maybe looking back at these cultures gives us clearer, simpler guidance than we realize.
Okay, so if we were to boil down this whole deep dive on Sardinia, what are the core takeaways? The interconnected factors.
I'd say it's that powerful mix. First, the really physically active lifestyle just built into their work and their environment, that tough terrain.
Right, the shepherd's walking miles.
Second, a diet featuring those nutrient-dense staples like the goat's cheese with that potential CLA-SIR21 connection we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And third, maybe most crucially, the preservation of that community-focused, simpler way of life. The social connections, the rhythm of it all.
It really drives home that while we chase the latest trends, maybe the foundations movement, real food, community are still the most powerful levers for well-being and longevity.
Absolutely.
And hopefully for everyone listening, this dive has given you some solid, useful insights without getting lost in the weeds.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. Thinking about your own life. Are there any of those fundamental old truths about how you move, how you connect with people, maybe just the pace of your day that might be worth rediscovering?
Inspired by Sardinia, perhaps there are some simpler, time-tested ways waiting to be brought back into your own routine. Something to ponder.